The morning coffee in Dr. Bell's cup had gone cold hours ago, but she barely noticed as she stared at the radio equipment crackling with emergency broadcasts from around the world. Every major observatory was reporting the same impossible thing. 200 massive objects had appeared in Earth's orbit without warning, their hulls gleaming like drops of blood against the black of space. Admiral Thane felt the familiar rush of conquest as he watched the primitive world spinning below through the viewing ports of his flagship. The blue and green marble looked so peaceful, so unaware of what was coming. His clawed fingers drummed against the command throne as tactical displays showed the pathetic defenses this world called military might. Nuclear weapons that could barely scratch paint from his hull, satellites that moved slower than insects, and ground forces scattered across the surface like ants. "Admiral, the scan is complete," reported his second-in-command, a tall creature whose purple skin glistened. "Under the bridge lights. Population approximately 8 billion. Technology level, primitive. Threat assessment, negligible." Thane's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species. 8 billion souls to add to the hegemony's vast empire, and not one of them capable of mounting real resistance. The betting pools among his crew had already started, with most wagering the humans would surrender within 3 hours. Some optimists even suggested it might take only one. Down on Earth, Captain Rivers sat in the emergency command center buried deep beneath Colorado's mountains. Screens around him showed the alien fleet in perfect formation, their weapons all ready, charging with energy readings that made their most powerful bombs look like firecrackers. His hands shook slightly as he reached for the red phone that connected him directly to world leaders. "They're not responding to any communication attempts," reported his communications officer, a young woman whose voice remained steady despite the circumstances. "Every frequency we try just gets silence." The silence ended exactly 1 hour after the ships had appeared. Every television, radio, and internet connection on Earth suddenly displayed the same image: Admiral Thane's reptilian face filling screens worldwide. His voice carried the weight of 1,000 conquered worlds as he delivered his ultimatum. "Primitive inhabitants of the third planet, you now face the might of the hegemony. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your defenses cannot stop us. You have one of your hours to surrender completely and unconditionally. Comply, and you will be permitted to serve the Empire. Resist, and your world will burn until nothing remains but ash and memory." The transmission showed footage from other worlds the hegemony had claimed: great cities reduced to glass and rubble, populations fleeing in terror before the crimson ships, entire civilizations erased in days. The message was clear and had never failed to break the spirit of resistance on any world the fleet had visited, but something strange happened after the ultimatum ended. Instead of panic, instead of governments scrambling to surrender, radio stations across Earth began playing music. Old songs, new songs, classical pieces, and folk tunes from every culture humanity had ever produced. It was as if the entire planet had decided to throw one final party before the end. Admiral Thane watched the displays with growing confusion. His invasion protocols had accounted for many responses: immediate surrender, desperate last-minute attacks, religious ceremonies, SS evacuations. But this musical response was not in any of his tactical manuals. His science officer, Commander Vale, adjusted sensors to try understanding this bizarre human behavior. "Perhaps it is some form of psychological warfare," Vale suggested, though uncertainty colored his voice. "Or maybe a religious ritual before death." The hour deadline approached with no official response from any Earth government. Military bases around the world remained active but showed no signs of launching attacks or raising defensive shields. Civilian populations continued their strange musical celebration, with many gathering in public spaces to sing together. Admiral Thane grew impatient. Victory was assured, but the sooner this world submitted, the sooner his fleet could move on to more challenging conquests. He was about to order the demonstration attack that would surely break human resistance when something unexpected crackled through their communication systems. An elderly human voice, speaking with the calm tone of someone discussing weather, came through clearly on multiple frequencies. The voice belonged to Dr. Bell, broadcasting from her small university radio station with equipment that should have been impossible for the aliens to receive. To our visitors from space, this is Dr. Bell speaking from Earth. We appreciate your offer to join your empire. We truly do. It sounds like you have accomplished remarkable things among the stars. However, after careful consideration, humanity must respectfully decline your generous proposal. We rather like our little planet just the way it is. The Bridge of Admiral. Thane's flagship fell silent. In 3,000 years of hegemony expansion, no world had ever politely declined invasion. The response was so unexpected that several crew members looked to their admiral for guidance on how to interpret such unprecedented behavior. "Sir, how should we respond to this?" asked the communications officer, genuinely puzzled by the situation. Admiral. Thane's confusion quickly transformed into anger. This primitive species had not only refused surrender but had done so with casual politeness, as if declining an invitation to dinner rather than facing the most powerful military force in the galaxy. The insult to hegemony authority could not stand. "Begin the demonstration," he ordered, his voice carrying the cold fury of wounded pride. "Target their largest population centers. Show them what resistance costs." 3 destroyers detached from the main fleet, their weapons already charging as they descended toward Earth's atmosphere. Their target, the coastal city humans called New York, home to millions of people who would serve as an example to the rest of their species. The ships moved with deadly grace, their hulls gleaming in Earth sunlight as they prepared to deliver a message written in fire and destruction. Admiral Thane watched the tactical display with satisfaction, already imagining the surrender that would surely follow such a demonstration of power. None of the aliens suspected that Earth had been preparing for this moment not for days or years, but for billions of years. Evolution had crafted a defense system so subtle, so invisible, that even the most advanced sensors in the galaxy could not detect it. The real war was about to begin, and humanity's greatest allies were too small to see. The 3 hegemony destroyers cut through Earth's atmosphere like silver knives, their shields glowing as they pushed through the dense air that no alien had ever breathed. Commander Vale monitored their descent from the flagship above, watching. As thermal readings showed the ships heating up from atmospheric friction, though well within normal parameters for such advanced vessels. Dr. Bell continued her radio broadcast as if nothing unusual was happening, discussing the weather patterns over the Midwest with the same gentle tone she had used to decline the alien ultimatum. Her university colleagues had evacuated hours ago, but she remained at her post, occasionally sipping from her cold coffee cup while watching the morning sun stream through her office windows. The first destroyer reached the optimal altitude for maximum psychological impact, hovering directly over Manhattan's skyline with its weapons trained on the millions of humans below. The ship's captain, a veteran of 50 conquered worlds, activated the external speakers to broadcast the standard pre-bombardment warning. "Citizens of Earth, witness the price of defiance. Your leaders have chosen destruction over wisdom. Let this moment serve as a lesson to your species about the futility of resistance." People in the streets below looked up at the massive ship, some pointing with curiosity rather than terror. Street musicians continued playing. Children asked their parents about the pretty silver ship in the sky, and morning commuters hurried to work as if giant alien warships were a normal part of Tuesday morning traffic. The destroyer's captain hesitated, puzzled by the lack of panic. Every other world had shown proper fear at this moment, with populations screaming and fleeing in all directions. These humans seemed almost bored by the presence of their destroyers. Perhaps they were too primitive to understand the danger they faced. "Begin primary bombardment sequence," the captain ordered, directing his weapons officer to target the tallest structures first. The psychological impact would be greater if they brought down the humans' proudest achievements before moving on to the general population, but something was wrong with the targeting systems. The weapons officer reported strange readings, as if the ship's sensors were detecting interference from unknown sources. The energy conduits that powered their main guns showed fluctuating power levels, and several backup systems were displaying error messages in languages the computer could not translate. Commander Vale, monitoring from orbit, noticed the first anomaly when the destroyer's hull began showing stress fractures along the seams. This was impossible, as the biosteel alloy used in hegemony construction could withstand direct impacts from small asteroids. The material was grown rather than forged, designed to self-repair and adapt to any damage. Captain, are you experiencing any system failures? Vale transmitted to the lead destroyer. The response came through crackling with static. Negative. All systems showing green, but we are detecting some kind of corrosive effect on the outer hull. Investigating the source now. The investigation would be brief. Within minutes of entering Earth's lower atmosphere, the destroyer's hull was dissolving like sugar in rain. What the aliens could not understand was that Earth's air was not empty space punctuated by simple gases. It was a living ecosystem, teeming with billions of microscopic organisms that had been evolving for millions of years to break down organic materials. The biosteel that made up the hegemony ships was essentially a complex organic polymer, perfectly designed to resist conventional weapons and energy attacks. But Earth's bacteria saw it as food, and they were very, very hungry. Dr. Bell paused in her weather report as her radio equipment began picking up panicked transmissions from the alien ships. Her linguistics training, rusty from decades of disuse, helped her recognize the tone of confusion and growing fear in the alien voices, even if she could not understand their words. "Oh my," she said into her microphone. "It sounds like our visitors are having some technical difficulties. I do hope they brought spare parts." The first destroyer was now visibly dissolving, its hull plates peeling away like old paint as Earth's atmospheric bacteria consumed the organic compounds that held the alien metal together. The ship's captain ordered an emergency ascent, but the engines were failing as microscopic invaders ate through the biological components that regulated power flow. The other two destroyers, seeing their companions' distress, moved to higher altitudes and began running full atmospheric analysis. Their scientists worked frantically to identify what was attacking their ships, but their instruments could only detect the presence of simple carbon-based life forms far too small to pose any threat to advanced technology. Commander Vale watched in growing horror as the first destroyer crashed into the Atlantic Ocean, its hull completely compromised and its crew dead from exposure to Earth's hostile atmosphere. The impossible had happened. The most advanced military force in the galaxy had just lost a capital ship to invisible enemies too small to target. "Admiral, we need immediate analysis of the planetary atmosphere," Vale reported to the flagship. "Something in their air is consuming our hull material at the molecular level." Admiral Thane reviewed the sensor data with disbelief. According to their instruments, Earth's atmosphere contained nothing more dangerous than nitrogen, oxygen, and trace gases. The organic life signs were typical bacterial colonies, no different from the harmless microorganisms found on thousands of worlds throughout the galaxy. There must be some kind of cloaked weapon system, Thane decided. Deploy scanner drones and find whatever technology these primitives are using against us. But the scanner drones suffered the same fate as the destroyer. Each probe that entered Earth's atmosphere began deteriorating within minutes, their organic components consumed by bacteria that had been perfecting the art of decomposition since before complex life had emerged from the oceans. The second destroyer attempted to maintain position above the cloud layer, but atmospheric currents carried the bacterial colonies higher than expected. Weather patterns that had seemed like simple meteorological phenomena were actually vast transportation networks, moving Earth's invisible defenders throughout the entire atmospheric envelope. Dr. Bell checked her watch and returned to her regularly scheduled programming. "And now for today's gardening segment," she announced cheerfully. Listeners in the New York area might have noticed some unusual metal debris washing up on the beaches this morning. While this makes excellent fertilizer for your tomato plants, please remember to wear gloves when handling unknown materials. The remaining two destroyers began their retreat toward orbit, but they were already compromised. Earth's bacterial defenders had found their way into the ship's life support systems, and the organic filters that recycled air for the alien crews were dissolving faster than they could be replaced. Commander Vale made the difficult decision to inform Admiral Thane that the demonstration attack had failed completely. One destroyer was destroyed, and two more were heavily damaged by enemies that their most advanced sensors could barely detect. The mighty hegemony had just been defeated by microorganisms. Tom Wilson had been mopping floors at the local community college for 15 years, but today he was leading humanity's strangest military operation. Armed with nothing more than a garden sprayer filled with pond water and industrial cleaning supplies, he crept through the abandoned parking lot where the second hegemony destroyer had made an emergency landing. The massive ship sat tilted and broken, its once gleaming hull now pitted and corroded like a piece of metal left in acid rain. For decades, strange fluids leaked from various openings, and the air around the vessel shimmered with heat from failing systems inside. "Remember, everyone keep your breathing masks on," Tom whispered to his team of volunteers, a mixed group of janitors, gardeners, and maintenance workers who had responded to Dr. Bell's radio broadcasts. "We don't know if their air is safe for us." What Tom and his team did not realize was that the alien air filtration systems had completely failed hours ago. Inside the destroyer, the surviving crew members were slowly suffocating as Earth's bacteria consumed the organic components that processed their atmosphere. The aliens had sealed themselves in emergency shelters, but even those were beginning to show signs of contamination. Mary Foster adjusted her grip on the modified leaf blower she had converted into a bacterial warfare device. As the head librarian at the downtown branch, she had spent her career organizing information, but today she was organizing humanity's counterattack using knowledge gathered from gardening forums and fermentation blogs. "The internet says that different bacteria work better on different types of metal," she reported to Tom, reading from her smartphone. "The sewage treatment plant bacteria seem especially effective against their hull plating." Dr. Bell's radio BROADCASTS had evolved into something resembling a wartime resistance frequency. Between weather updates and classical music selections, she provided detailed instructions for creating biological weapons from household items. Yogurt cultures, kombucha starters, and sourdough bacteria all proved devastatingly effective against hegemony technology. Commander Vale watched the tactical displays with growing despair as human resistance groups emerged across the globe. These were not military units with advanced weapons, but ordinary civilians armed with spray bottles, garden hoses, and agricultural equipment. Yet somehow they were more effective against hegemony forces than entire planetary defense fleets. "Sir, we have lost contact with 3 more landing parties," reported his tactical officer. The last transmission mentioned something about humans using water guns filled with what they called pickle juice. The science behind humanity's invisible advantage was becoming clear to the surviving alien scientists, though the knowledge came too late to change the outcome. Earth's biosphere was not just teeming with life. It was a 4-billion-year-old weapons system that treated any foreign organic material as an invasion to be repelled. Every species that had ever evolved on Earth had been shaped by this constant microscopic warfare. Humans had not just survived this environment. They had thrived in it, developing immune systems and symbiotic relationships with bacterial colonies that aliens could not comprehend. The hegemony's biosteel technology, so advanced by galactic standards, was essentially baby food to Earth's bacterial defenders. What the aliens saw as sophisticated organic polymers, Earth's microorganisms recognized as a convenient source of carbon and nutrients. Admiral Thane authorized the deployment of atmospheric processors designed to sterilize entire worlds, but these too fell victim to bacterial sabotage. The moment the machines began operating in Earth's atmosphere, their organic components started dissolving. Atmospheric currents carried bacterial colonies directly into the processor intake systems, where they treated the alien technology like an all-you-can-eat buffet. Tom Wilson's team had grown from a dozen volunteers to several hundred, all armed with improvised biological weapons. They discovered that different fermentation processes created bacteria, specifically effective against different alien technologies. Beer breweries became ammunition factories, and cheese-making facilities turned into centers of military research. The yogurt culture works great on their personal weapons, reported a grocery store manager who had joined Tom's group. But for the big stuff, you really need the good bacteria from the waste treatment facility. Mary Foster had established coordination networks between resistance cells using the library's interlibrary loan system. Librarians across the world shared information about effective bacterial strains and deployment methods through book requests and catalog updates that the aliens could not intercept or understand. The hegemony's advanced communication networks, designed to operate across galactic distances, proved completely inadequate for dealing with Earth's low-tech resistance movement. Ham radio operators, citizen band enthusiasts, and even people with walkie-talkies were coordinating attacks faster than the aliens could respond. Dr. Bell's broadcasts now included what she cheerfully called bacterial weather reports, informing listeners about atmospheric conditions that favored different types of microbial warfare. Wind patterns, humidity levels, and temperature changes all affected how effectively Earth's invisible defenders could attack alien technology. Today looks like an excellent day for lactobacillus deployment in the northern regions, she announced. During her morning show, southern areas should consider Bacillus subtilis, with a chance of streptococcus later in the afternoon. The third wave of hegemony ships attempting to land found Earth's atmosphere completely hostile to their technology. Weather balloons and crop dusters had carried bacterial colonies to altitudes that made the entire lower atmosphere a death trap for organic-based alien machinery. Commander Vale made increasingly desperate attempts to establish safe landing zones using purely mechanical technology, but Earth's defenders had adapted even to this threat. Rust bacteria, mold spores, and other specialized microorganisms attacked any foreign material that entered the planetary ecosystem. Admiral, I must recommend immediate retreat to deep space, Vale reported to his increasingly agitated commander. This world's biosphere appears to be actively hostile to our technology at the molecular level. But Admiral Thane refused to accept defeat at the hands of primitives armed with garden equipment. The hegemony had never retreated from any world, and he would not be the first admiral to break that tradition. Instead, he authorized the use of planet-cracking weapons, massive devices designed to split worlds apart from orbit. Tom Wilson looked up at the alien ships through his protective goggles as bacterial clouds drifted around the landing site like morning fog. The destroyed alien vessels were already being stripped by volunteers who had learned to harvest useful materials before complete bacterial decomposition set in. You know, he said to Mary Foster as they watched another hegemony ship crash in the distance. I always thought the microbes in my mop bucket were just there to make the floors smell better. The planet cracker weapons emerged from the hegemony flagship like massive metal flowers blooming in the vacuum of space. Each device was the size of a small moon and contained enough destructive power to split a world along its tectonic plates. Admiral Thane had authorized their use with the desperate fury of a commander, facing the impossible prospect of total defeat. High school biology teacher Patricia Wells stood in her empty classroom, mixing bacterial cultures in laboratory beakers, while her students' abandoned textbooks lay scattered on desks around her. The irony was not lost on her that she was now using the same microorganisms she had been teaching about just days earlier to wage war against the most advanced military force in the galaxy. The key is getting the right bacterial mixture to the right altitude, she explained into her cell phone to resistance coordinators across the state. Weather balloon delivery systems work best, but we need to time the releases with atmospheric currents. The first planet cracker descended toward Earth's upper atmosphere, its massive bulk designed to penetrate planetary defenses and detonate at the core. The weapon's biosteel housing was even more sophisticated than the standard hegemony ships, incorporating self-repair mechanisms and adaptive armor that could resist virtually any known attack, but Earth's bacterial defenders had been learning and adapting too. 4 billion years of evolution had created microorganisms capable of breaking down any organic compound, and the planet cracker's advanced materials were simply new food sources to explore and digest. Commander Vale watched in disbelief as the first planet cracker began, showing signs of structural failure while still in Earth's upper atmosphere. The weapon's biosteel hull was dissolving faster than its self-repair systems could compensate, creating a cascade failure that spread throughout the massive device. "Sir, the planet cracker is experiencing critical system failures," reported his science officer. "The bacterial colonies have somehow reached orbital altitude and are consuming the weapon's organic components." The truth was both simpler and more terrifying than the aliens could understand. Humans had been launching bacterial colonies into Earth's upper atmosphere for decades through weather research, atmospheric studies, and even amateur rocket programs. What had started as scientific curiosity had accidentally created a defensive perimeter that extended far beyond the planet's surface. Tom Wilson's resistance cell had grown into a small army of civilians armed with increasingly sophisticated biological weapons. Working with Patricia Wells and other scientists who had joined the resistance, they had developed delivery systems that could target specific types of alien technology with surgical precision. The crop dusters loaded with activated sludge cultures worked perfectly on their ground vehicles, reported a farmer whose cornfields had become a staging area for attacks on alien landing parties. "But for the big orbital stuff, we need something that can survive in vacuum." Dr. Bell's radio broadcasts now reached resistance cells on every continent, coordinating a global biological warfare campaign using nothing more sophisticated than civilian communication networks. Her gentle voice had become the soundtrack to humanity's strangest victory, providing tactical updates between classical music selections and gardening advice. Listeners in the Pacific time zone should note that atmospheric conditions favor spore dispersal this evening, she announced during her afternoon show. Those planning activities involving bacillus cultures should take advantage of the favorable wind patterns. The second planet cracker suffered the same fate as the first, its massive bulk dissolving into metallic rain that fell harmlessly into Earth's oceans. Admiral Thane stared at tactical displays showing the impossible. Weapons capable of destroying entire worlds were being defeated by microscopic organisms that his sensors could barely detect. Mary Foster had transformed the public library system into a biological warfare research network, with librarians sharing information about bacterial cultivation and deployment through book circulation databases. The Dewey Decimal System had become a code for coordinating attacks, with different classification numbers corresponding to different types of microbial weapons. "We need more information about extremophile bacteria," she transmitted to University. Libraries across the globe using interlibrary loan request forms, specifically organisms capable of surviving in low-oxygen, high-radiation environments. The request was not academic curiosity. Human scientists had realized that some of Earth's most exotic bacteria could survive in space for limited periods, turning the vacuum around Earth into another battlefield where hegemony technology could be attacked and destroyed. Patricia Wells led a team of chemistry teachers in developing bacterial delivery systems using high school laboratory equipment and supplies ordered from scientific catalogs. Bunsen burners became sterilization tools for preparing pure cultures, and microscopes allowed precise identification of the most effective strains. "Remember, safety first when handling these cultures," she reminded her volunteer team, though the irony was obvious. They were using safety protocols designed to protect humans from bacteria while simultaneously weaponizing those same organisms against alien invaders. The third planet cracker never even reached Earth's atmosphere before bacterial colonies attacked its organic components. Weather balloons released from around the globe had created a defensive barrier that extended thousands of kilometers into space, invisible to alien sensors but devastating to their biosteel technology. Admiral Thane's desperation reached new heights as reports came in from across his fleet. Ships throughout the Crimson Fleet were experiencing system failures as Earth's bacterial defenders found ways to attack even vessels that had never entered the planet's atmosphere. Somehow, the microscopic invaders were spreading between ships, carried by air recycling systems and maintenance shuttles. "Admiral, I recommend immediate retreat to deep space," Commander Vale advised for the third time. "Our losses are approaching 50%, and the contamination is spreading throughout the fleet." But retreat would mean acknowledging defeat at the hands of primitives armed with gardening equipment and household chemicals. The hegemony's reputation as an unstoppable force would be shattered, and other worlds might begin to think that resistance was possible. Tom Wilson stood in the ruins of a hegemony landing craft, watching as Earth's bacterial colonies reduced the alien technology to metallic sludge that would enrich the soil for next season's crops. Around him, volunteers stripped useful components from the dissolving wreckage before the decomposition process was complete. "You know what I love about this job?" he asked Mary Foster as she cataloged salvageable alien technology using her library classification system. "Finally found a use for all those cleaning supplies I've been buying for 15 years. The hegemony's most advanced weapons were no match for 4 billion years of evolutionary warfare waged by organisms, too small to see but too numerous to defeat. Earth's invisible defenders had turned the planet's entire biosphere into a weapon system that treated any foreign technology as food to be consumed and digested." Admiral Thane prepared to authorize weapons that would sterilize Earth's surface from orbit, but even those systems were failing as bacterial contamination spread through his flagship's organic components. The mighty Crimson Fleet was dissolving around him, defeated by enemies that refused to fight fair according to the rules of galactic warfare. Admiral Thane's flagship shuddered as another section of biosteel hull plating dissolved into the vacuum of space. Through the viewing ports, he could see the scattered remains of what had once been the galaxy's most feared invasion fleet, now reduced to metallic debris floating in Earth's orbital space like the aftermath of a cosmic shipwreck. Dr. Bell sat in her university radio station, sipping fresh coffee from a mug decorated with pictures of smiling bacteria. Around her, the morning sunlight streamed through windows that looked out on a world unchanged by alien invasion, where people were already returning to their normal routines as if defeating a galactic empire had been just another Tuesday morning activity. "Good morning, Earth," she said into her microphone with the same gentle tone she had used throughout the brief war. "This is Dr. Bell with your daily update. Our visitors from space appear to be experiencing some ongoing technical difficulties with their equipment. Perhaps this would be a good time to discuss terms for their departure." Commander Vale, his purple skin now pale with shock and exhaustion, approached Admiral Thane's command throne with the final damage reports. The numbers were devastating. Of 200 ships in the Crimson Fleet, fewer than 40 remained even marginally operational. Most of those were running on backup power systems that were themselves beginning to show signs of bacterial contamination. "Sir, we have lost all offensive capability," Vale reported with the resignation of a career soldier facing the unthinkable. "Our weapon systems are completely compromised. Life support is failing on multiple vessels, and the contamination is spreading faster than our containment protocols can manage." Tom Wilson led a small parade of volunteers through downtown streets that were littered with the dissolved remains of alien landing craft. Children collected pieces of corroded alien metal like souvenirs while their parents used gardening equipment to spray bacterial cultures on any remaining hegemony technology that showed signs of functionality. "Looks like we missed a spot," Tom observed, pointing his modified garden sprayer at a piece of alien communication equipment that was still weakly transmitting. The device dissolved within minutes of contact with Earth's microscopic defenders, its organic components consumed by bacteria that had been evolving their digestive capabilities for billions of years. Mary Foster had established a temporary command center in the public library, coordinating with resistance cells around the world through systems so low-tech that the aliens had never thought to monitor them. Library cards became identification for resistance fighters, and overdue book notices carried coded messages about bacterial deployment strategies. According to reports from Australia, the alien evacuation shuttles are failing at an average rate of 1 per hour, she announced to the gathered volunteers. New Zealand confirms that atmospheric bacterial levels are now sufficient to disable any remaining hegemony technology within 15 minutes of exposure. The surrender announcement came not as a formal military communication, but as a desperate plea broadcast on frequencies so primitive that most galactic civilizations had abandoned them centuries ago. Admiral Thane's voice, once filled with the confidence of inevitable victory, now carried the hollow tone of complete defeat. People of Earth, this is Admiral Thane of the Hegemony Crimson Fleet. We formally request immediate ceasefire and wish to negotiate terms for our withdrawal from your system. Our medical facilities are failing, and we require assistance for our surviving crew members. Dr. Bell adjusted her radio equipment to respond on the same primitive frequency, her voice maintaining its characteristic politeness even when addressing the alien commander who had threatened to destroy her world. Just days earlier, Admiral Thane, this is Dr. Bell. We appreciate your change in perspective regarding our planet's status. We would be happy to discuss arrangements for your departure, though I should mention that our terms may be somewhat different from what you initially offered us. Patricia Wells had transformed her high school laboratory into an alien technology analysis center, where students and teachers worked together to understand the hegemony's advanced systems before they completely dissolved. The irony was remarkable. Earth's most primitive educational institutions were reverse engineering technology that represented millions of years of galactic development. The interesting thing is that their biosteel is actually more advanced than anything we could have imagined, she explained to Tom Wilson and Mary Foster as they examined a partially dissolved alien weapon. But it's also completely vulnerable to the same bacteria that we use to make yogurt. The negotiation process was unlike anything in galactic history. Instead of meeting in neutral space aboard diplomatic vessels, the aliens were forced to communicate through Earth's primitive radio networks while their ships continued dissolving around them. Every hour of delay meant more hegemony. Technology consumed by Earth's invisible defenders, Admiral Thane found himself in the unprecedented position of surrendering not just his fleet, but the technological secrets of an entire galactic empire. Earth's terms were simple but comprehensive: complete star charts of hegemony space, full technical specifications for all alien technology, and a solemn promise that no extraterrestrial force would ever again underestimate the small blue world on the galaxy's outer edge. We also require a formal acknowledgement that Earth is to be classified as a restricted world in your galactic databases, Dr. Bell added during one of their radio conversations. I believe the appropriate designation would be something along the lines of biological hazard, extinction-level threat to organic technology. Tom Wilson laughed as he watched the last functional hegemony transport shuttle dissolve on the community college parking lot where he had spent 15 years mopping floors. The alien crew inside had already died from exposure to Earth's atmosphere, their bodies consumed by the same bacteria that broke down organic waste in his janitor's closet. You know what the best part is? He asked Mary Foster as she catalogued the final pieces of salvageable alien equipment. We won the whole war using stuff I could buy at the hardware store for $20. The hegemony survivors, their numbers reduced to fewer than 1,000 from an original invasion force of nearly 50,000, agreed to every human demand with the desperate urgency of beings who understood they were facing extinction. Their mighty empire's reputation would never recover from this defeat. But survival took precedence over pride. Dr. Bell's final broadcast to the alien fleet carried the same gentle courtesy she had shown throughout the conflict, though her words carried implications that would reshape galactic politics for generations to come. Admiral Thane, we wish you a safe journey home and hope you will share with your people the lessons learned during your visit to our world. Please remember that Earth welcomes peaceful contact with other civilizations, but we do prefer that our guests call ahead before dropping by. The few remaining hegemony ships limped away from Earth's orbit, their hulls patched with mechanical components that Earth's bacteria found less appealing than biosteel. Behind them, they left a planet that looked exactly the same as it had before their arrival, except for the metallic debris that would enrich Earth's soil for generations. Mary Foster updated the library's catalog system with a new classification for the volumes of alien technology specifications that Earth had acquired through negotiation. Under the Dewey Decimal System, she filed them under Applied Sciences, though she noted that most of the information was now obsolete since Earth's bacteria had already evolved countermeasures against every technology the aliens possessed. The galaxy's databases were quietly updated with a new entry for the third planet in an unremarkable solar system. Earth's classification read simply, Quarantine World, Biological Hazard Level, Extinction, Approach Not Recommended. It was the first time in galactic history that an entire world had been classified as a weapon of mass destruction.